You do the wrong thing so long that the right thing feels wrong. This is kind of the state of modern dating and relating. And I have a queenly sort of wonderful lady who is here just eloquently and elegantly about to embark on this conversation of in what ways can we upgrade our focus, perspective, experience in the modern world so that the thing that might be right for us that we might not have known when we started, we can do and do well. Uh,
Mm.
Welcome, Alyssa. It's delightful to have you in this conversation.
Thank you, Lewis. I'm happy to be here.
So, for those of you who don't know, or for some reason clicked on this without realizing, this is the Make Love Easy podcast, built to support badass professional men in dating, relating, and mating. And yeah, we have a lot of amazing guests. So what's your story, Alyssa? Like we had this conversation briefly and a lot of resonance and coming into synergy around like seeing the need for certain conversations and distinguishing to come into the realm of dating and sexuality that just hasn't been there. And you were beginning to tell me just before we got on, like this exploration of non-monogamy and all kinds of things. So yeah, tell me your story. What was it like to come be who you are now?
Mm. Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking. I might like to give some history to like my dating and relating trajectory because I feel like speaking to the root of what had me like enter into non-monogamy and then leave it essentially matters. So I grew up very boy crazy and very, like I wanted what all my friends had, the boyfriends and the dates, and I was just I was I don't know now if it was that like I wasn't being chosen for some reason. Like I used to think it was because of my body, right? Now I wonder if it was in part because I was just had this like maturity about me, perhaps for my age that didn't that made me like not approachable by young men, right? But so when I got to college, I was 20 years old. Well, I was 17 when I started college, but when I was 20, I met a man who just took to me right away, and we slept together 4 days after meeting. And I really thought, like, this was my first time sleeping with somebody, and I really thought that I was gonna now be able to explore all the things sexually with all the people. And then I just kept seeing him, and we sort of just fell into a relationship, and we defaulted to monogamy. And I was with him for 4 years. And then this is so funny. I I went on a rabbit hole discovering Burning Man and like the culture around Burning Man in 2012, and the culture of open relating, came up in my searching, and I suddenly had this question that I brought to him on, what do you think about this? And he just shut the conversation down immediately. And I felt really, I was like 23 at the time. I was still very curious, very kind of uninitiated in a lot of the ways of relating and sexuality. And so that really seeded something for me. And between that and a lot of other things that were not working about our relationship, I, you know, did one of the hardest things I ever did as a young woman and left him. And I really didn't have, this was when I had just moved to Austin. I didn't have much of anything. I kind of, crawled my way into some semblance of a life on my own. And then it ended up being a really powerful 7 years for me being there. But so in that time I explored, I dated, you know, slept with people. Like I just kind of opened myself to having this experience of my sexuality and my body and my womanhood in a way that I, felt like I didn't get to have in my teen years, right? And so I did that for about 6 years. Then I moved to New York
Mm.
and I met a man 9 months after moving here. Um, and I had just, that was actually meeting him. It was maybe 6 months after I went to my first play party. I was invited to my first play party, and that was, I had had friends who were in that world, and I just, again, was so curious. I'm someone who has always been so drawn to the realm of relationship and intimacy um and men and women and like what the sort of entanglements between men and women, but also the romance and the desire and like where's my place in all of this, right? Um, as a passionate being. And so yeah, I had a couple really profound experiences in these play parties. The first ones that I went to were more sort of intentional, like tantric containers, so that it wasn't just, people immediately going at it. It was we're all sitting and getting to know each other and doing like consent exercises and kind of getting on the same wavelength together before the play began. And then I met this man who we both had, he had had a lot more experience in the world of play parties and made it very clear up front that he was, non-monogamous and he was like looking for a woman who would explore all of that with him. And when I found that out, I just was like, oh my God, that's me, right? Like I'm in this exploration by myself. And so to do it with a man, like that was really appealing for me. And I think there was this aspect of feeling like chosen, like, oh, I was sort of like his dream woman, right? This woman who could explore in all these realms with him. And then the compatibility that we had, in all these other ways was there as well. And so yeah, our we really jumped in. We jumped in and I slept with him on the second date. On the third date, I invited him to a play party that I had already um committed to going to, and that was, to be honest with you, one of the worst decisions I've ever made because we just did not have any like level of intentionality with what we were, with what we wanted going in. And that's sort of, I know that this is kind of like gonna be a bigger arc in our conversation, and I just want to presence it now, but like the lack of intentionality that I had in relationships. And I think that that was really present in the beginning of this one. So yeah, like really wild beginning. Our fourth date was at Burning Man. And I'm uh it, and it just we just kind of fell into being together. And then 7 months later, COVID happened and we had to make that choice of are we doing this together? Are we doing this separately? And so it just sort of solidified our togetherness even more. And over the last few years in that relationship, I really have like so much love for this man and the journey that we were on together. But I realized that there were things like beneath my choices that I wasn't in full consciousness about.
Mhm.
And that one of those was I had struggled for a really long time with wanting to feel fully chosen by a man, but I put myself in a scenario where I would be constantly met with jealousy that he's like choosing other people and that he's desiring and sleeping with other people. So it kept me in this like activated, uncomfortable state where I never felt fully chosen. And I was just chasing his approval and like chasing that sense of being desired by a man. It was like the perfect setup for for this sort of outpicturing of my like the ego that just like needs to constantly feed, right? Rather than, what I'm committed to now, which is a relationship that is so rooted in intentionality, where we take our time to get to know each other and each other's lives and worlds and family and friends. And like, what is the rush?
That was cute.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's so much that sparked. Like it may have felt like a monologue, but it was really a journey. And yeah, I I felt when I was like 17 years and 364 days old that I was not a man because I had not had sex.
Mm.
So, as the story goes, my friend lied to his parents that he was spending the night at my house. I lied to my parents that I was spending the night at his house. He stole the van after asking if he could borrow it, and they told him no. So he could drive me 3.5 hours to meet a red-haired chick on MySpace who I had been courting for weeks, who loved to talk and talk and talk and talk, so that I could go to Lafayette and have sex for the first time before I turned 18, like just in time, sliding into home plate.
Wow.
After
Mm,
growing up socially awkward, anxious, introverted, um, sexually repressed, Catholic,
mm,
and yeah, I also didn't have any of that stuff in my teen years. So it was like the pulling taut of a slingshot or a rubber band to where all this sexual tension and desire, except with pornography, but that's not like real experience, um, launched me into this world of like, all right, well, I as a man should be able to create dates and sex to
mm,
fulfill my needs.
mm,
And I didn't see what was beneath those choices or beneath that realm of distinguishing or perceiving most. So I was involved in old school pickup artistry, like mystery method, speed seduction, gunwich method. I was like studying because I thought, all right, I've got to figure this out. I failed miserably. I'm left behind. I'm behind the curve. Everybody else has had sex and dates and relationships and I don't know how to do it. So I read The Game, Penetrating the Secret Society of Pickup Artists by Neil Strauss, and I was like, oh, a guy who did it. If he can do it, I can do it too, which is a great intro to the like world of personal development, but not ultimately to authenticity based relating and dating. Like I built a whole mask and repertoire, and so I moved to Austin in order to complete that journey, in order to get to a place where I felt like dating, relating, sex was easy. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, did we meet through One Taste originally? Or
No, I don't think so.
okay.
But those worlds were, I think, our like the healing worlds were all kind of interwoven. So,
Okay. So yeah, there was like a maturing, right? I like to say I went from sexually suppressed to overly expressed
mm.
to then seeking exquisite alignment, SEX for those of you who are tracking. Um, I've always thought it was just so cute. It really works. But I started to integrate like emotional intelligence as I did stuff like Landmark and One Taste. And I started to actually like feel my feelings and energetic intelligence and awareness. And all of that is great, but it doesn't ask the question, should I be pursuing this at all?
Wow.
Casual sex,
Yeah.
random polyamory and whatnot. And my history with polyamory is like 10 years of stumbles and crumbles and chaos and pain mostly. I mean, there was like one relationship where it kind of worked, but
Mm,
long story short, I definitely resonate with the lacking of intentionality and the sort of ego or subconscious mind or wounded self running the show underneath the surface, seeking sex as an avenue for validation whether it be among my peers or just me by myself, mommy finally loves me. I'm finally getting the attention that I didn't get,
Mhm.
or the pleasure that I thought was my that I believe is I still believe is ours by birthright, but entangling and attaching that with a specific person
Oh.
or specific types of relationship, like I don't really resonate with that anymore. Though I've never been to play parties.
Mm.
I never took that full deep on like poly journey. Most of my poly journeys were, hey, I want you to be this woman to do this exploring with me. You've been chosen. And them placating, people pleasing, and tolerating until they would pop out and say, no, this actually wasn't for me, and I will never do it again. So so the Casanova that I grew never really felt like he actually had that life or
Mm.
got to experience or explore in all those ways. So there's still like a hanging chad, I think we might call it, or a tendril of like curiosity. Like, could it work? Would it work after I've built a secure base of attachment with a wife who's open to wild times but doesn't necessarily need them and wants to really like go deep and integrate in intimacy? So like there's a whole world here. And I think the biggest thing to point to that could make this spark here is in what ways are people going unconscious
Mm.
through exploring polyamory or play parties or even tantra. And and to start, I think most people who enter those worlds, yeah, they lack intentionality. Yeah,
Mm.
they're running from pain and blotting out that pain and trauma with ego and pleasure and validation. And it's like an endless wheel and cycle. They could just be there forever, like, oh, new partner, new play party, new touch, new
Mm.
orgasmic meditation.
Yeah.
And the sense that I get from you is that you began to do the deeper work of seeing why am I making these choices? Why am I hungering and hankering for validation? Um, can I give that to myself? Can I have that on my own without needing to choose chaotic styles of relating
Yeah.
that ultimately are harmful or painful? And then once one, because this is feels like the overlap between us, goes to that depth of relating to oneself, it seems like, oh, I don't actually have to have the sex so quickly.
Mhm.
I don't even have to have it to be fulfilled in life in
Mhm.
that way. And boy, all these people are like getting into situationships and stumbling drunkenly on the intoxicating chemicals of limerence and orgasm into relationships that they didn't choose with
Mm.
partners they didn't vet uh,
Yeah.
with criteria that they maybe didn't even stand for because they were following their sex over their head and their heart. So, yeah, what do you want to say about all that? I know I gave my own monologue here, but yeah.
No, I love it. Oh, there's yeah. So the piece that really stood out to me was when you were talking about pleasure. Okay. And you mentioned pleasure as this birthright. Yes. And mm, what I have discovered, pleasure was a pathway into being more deeply embodied, right? As a girl who grew up very insecure about her body, was a big girl, like I felt like very looked over. For me to have this, period of time in my life where it's like so strange because on the one hand, it felt so good to be chosen like for my body, right? Like to be desired and to be sexually appealing for men, to realize that I had that um yeah, that wasn't something that was like reserved for some other women, right? Like that was kind of the place that I had been in about it for a really long time. So coming into this exploration of my pleasure and my body that I had been already so disconnected from. It was like sex with other people became a pathway for me to be more fully embodied, but it would have never been sustainable because I was sourcing it in what other people thought about me, not like the relationship that I have with me and creating this like preciousness around myself, around my body, my heart as a woman, my womb, my like my sense of embodiment and pleasure no longer comes from other people. It's not sourced out there. It's sourced in me. And I will share too that my coming into a deeper relationship with God and what God is for me has been a massive part of this journey because I realized that I had just been trying to fill myself with, again, right, other people's validation and desire for me. I think the flip side of the sort of Casanova that you were speaking to is like the seductress
Mhm.
for a woman, right?
Yeah, yeah,
What was that?
the siren.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I wanted to be that. Like the woman that, the men would just like fall to their knees for, right? And it's just it's so, you know what it is? I kind of frame a lot of this journey as adolescent. Like to hold it in a way that is not ju it's not like to be adolescent, it's not judging it. It's just young. It was a young journey for me. And so I think why I don't have an interest in like vilifying in any way open relating or polyamory or play parties or any of that world um, is because it did provide this pathway into my own descent. But had I not also had a vested interest in becoming more conscious about my choices in life, like I could have just stayed in that world forever, right? I could have stayed in those patterns that kept me victimized and sort of ego driven and empty at the end of the day forever. So I'm glad that, similarly to you, like when I started doing self-development work, really began with doing Landmark in 2017 and then did a lot of courses through them and then went on to so many other courses. And most notably, the most transformative experience I've had is with a woman called named Jillian Pothier, who has a program called All for Love, and that she has been a tremendous mentor in like me coming home to the beauty of my feminine essence, and that I don't need that to be in right relationship with that for myself, and to be in right relationship with men and the masculine in a way that is honoring me and respecting them. It's been transformational as fuck.
Unintended.
It's true.
Um, yeah, I love where you've landed, and like a cat.
Oh,
I can imagine the cat.
I feel that. Oh my gosh. Wow, that free fall though from the building was like,
Yeah.
but that's, and that's what it feels like. That, Lewis, is what it feels like.
Mm.
Like I just was free falling in this world, trying to figure it out, trying to like find myself, trying to find what was true for me and what felt good for me in the face of so many things that just didn't feel good. So what does feel good? I didn't grow up like so many of us. I have so much compassion for people, I was going to say in our generation, but like it goes so far beyond that. There are so many people in the world who have not had healthy relationship and healthy marriage modeled to them. So of course, we would go on these journeys of trying to figure it out and piece together something that makes sense because we grew up witnessing, some of us, things that were supposed to be like healthy, marriages, quote unquote, but weren't. Grew up with witnessing divorce and infidelity and parents who talk horribly about each other to the children or don't talk at all. It's like, oh, we were not set up for success. So of course we would go, so many of us, into like all these realms of exploring and really either intentionally healing trauma, right? If you do it with consciousness, or sort of unintentionally healing trauma through at some point your life is such a mess and you're so unhappy that okay, there's a different choice to be made.
Mhm.
That was my experience.
Yeah, it's almost as if looking lengthwise at culture, you can go all the way back to the sexual revolution, like the 60s, and then before that to the 50s, the traditional sort of male-female dynamic. And it's not that marriage doesn't work, it's that it hasn't actually ever been or largely hasn't been effectively tried or practiced.
Mm.
And we don't know. It's one of my favorite philosophers, Gilles Deleuze, French guy. He says, "We don't know what a body is capable of. You, if the heart is open and the wounds are healed, the depth of intimacy available inside of one person is like vast. And the depth of physical pleasure and connection that's available just in one person. That they even there's a Judy Dutton, science scholar and sex researcher, she says in the book how we do it. She's like, all right, guess what the like optimal number of sexual partners for most people is? It's one. It's one. And
Yeah.
you'd think, no, no, it's got to be more than that. But no, it's one. And so, yeah, and especially with the inclusion of God. So this is a very shifty, like nuanced, multifaceted conversation. As I started to self-source and experience love inside myself and not need a partner to show up as that for me. Love doesn't come from people, it comes through people when we tune to it
Mm.
inside ourselves and receive it from God, ultimately, or from us, and then from God through people when and where appropriate. Um, then there became less grippiness and also vastly more capacity for emotional intimacy and depth with partners, which is where this whole thing comes in because I got to the point with the past three women in relationship. And Neil Strauss has this funny comment. He says, "Oh, I do. I used to turn one night stands into 2 year stands because he wasn't sure when they were going to happen again." And
Mm.
so these past three relationships, like it wasn't just chaotic casual sex, though it was in the very beginning, but it was like, oh, and now there's this pathway for emotional exchange, and and then we would stumble drunkenly into the connection to a certain degree.
Mm.
And with all three of the women, I eventually asked them to marry me, and they would say yes. But because I had chosen someone who was probably avoidant attached and probably not emotionally available, like I hadn't used my heart and my head to vet this person that I was putting my cock in at the very beginning,
Mm.
I was trying to create something that couldn't be grounded, not on their side anyway. Even though I was all in and available for it. And like, so the sex with this last partner was amazing. There's a reason why it's a bestseller in sacred sexuality. Like people are like, "Oh, I want that. That's great."
Mm.
But if we don't found it on fucking traditional courtship is what it starts to sound like. Like, all right, I'm gonna get to know you and hang out with you and not listen to what your lips say as much as seeing how your feet move and see your behavior and your patterns. If a relationship isn't founded on that, then I think it's on shifting, sinking sand and an ungrounded like foundation and is doomed to failure, which you look at 50% of marriages end in divorce. I think
Yeah.
part of it is because of that. Is because of this whole let's just take an act. And this is where it gets tricky because I don't know, I don't want to make any metaphysical statements about sex, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but oxytocin gets released whether you know it, like it, agree with it, believe it or not,
Uh-huh.
through sex, through orgasm. It's a bonding hormone.
Mhm.
And you can get these, porn stars who are able to have sex with 5,000 people who have maybe like found a way to turn off that attachment system or dull it out or ignore it or whatever. But I think for most people, given the choice between sex with intimacy and sex without, they'd choose sex with. And given the choice between a partner that they have intimacy and sex with that they have to break up from, or a partner that they don't have to break up from, like who the intimacy can continue developing, they'd prefer the one where the intimacy continues to develop.
Mhm.
And so this practice of like, let me have a lot of casual sex, it wears on the nervous system and
Mhm.
it fucks with that oxytocin release and it habituates someone to a dopamine seeking, stimulation obsessed hunger for novelty rather than being available for the actual oxytocin pleasure system of
Mhm.
depth of sensuality and orgasm and connection and intimacy. And so
Yeah.
I'm real afraid. And I'll tell you my one experiment and then I'll hand off the mic. Since I did 6 months of no dating, no sex, no relating after this breakup in March, it's now much longer than that. I had one experiment of casual-ish sex, and I thought it was a good idea because, it wasn't actual physical sex. It was just, all right, well, she's on Zoom, we're watching Star Trek Voyager together, and then she's really hot and I'm really turned on and she's really down. So we start having energy sex.
Mhm.
And this was in the context of like a week or two of establishing emotional connection. And I was like, all right, so there's like a sense that I've vetted her to some degree and she's probably out the wazoo. And then orgasm and share of energy. And then the next week she goes off for a week with her partner, her former partner who she hasn't seen in 6 months. And I was really hurt because there wasn't a padding or buffer or sensitive recreation of the container of our connection in light of the deepened intimacy that sex engendered, that maybe she didn't intend, certainly didn't intend to be responsible for the consequences of, as much as I invited and gently and then eventually frustratingly invited her to take responsibility for it. And so I realized, oh, I set up a game that I couldn't win. Casual sex is a game I can't win. Because if
Mhm.
I get turned on emotionally, like if I open my heart, I got to be careful where I point this thing. And even one instance of one night of casual, energetic, not even physical sex,
Mhm.
it caused me such angst and anguish and pain afterwards that I was like, all right, I guess I'm waiting till I'm fucking married. Fuck. And until God gives me a fucking partner.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing about casual sex is there's like this hungry, reaching, rushing quality to it. And even dating in general seems to be a game that's set up to where it's like, well, I'm vetting you against criterion. I'm trying to make something happen rather than I'm going to receive the person who was built by me or built by God in alliance with my superconscious mind for my highest good and my highest use on the planet. Not
Yeah.
just my ego's felt needs to fill its wounds with somebody else. So,
Yeah.
period.
Mm.
I love
Yum.
that land. What are you hearing? What are you enjoying there?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So one thing that's coming up that speaks to what you were just pointing to is that my life is about more, ought be about more than my pleasure seeking.
Yep.
The living a life of service, coming from that place as an individual and trusting that, as you said, God choosing, showing me, presenting me with a partner, a person, a man who is to be my husband, with whom I get to be of service in a greater way than I could as an individual. That to me turns me on and lights me up more than anything. And I think that before I just didn't fully, I couldn't fully rest in that was possible for me. Where now I'm like, of course it is. Of course it is. And of course I'm worth it. And of course this is part of the reason that I've even incarnated here. Like to have stopped at the lifestyle that I was living would have been such a disservice. Um Oh, yeah, wow, so much. It's interesting to hear you talk about, you know, waiting for sex and how that was so like something that when I was young, I remember being 11 years old and I wrote, I'm not going to drink till I'm 21. I'm never going to do drugs and I'm going to wait till I am married to have sex. No one put that on me. Like I chose that. I didn't grow up, my parents were raised in the church, but they did not bring us to church growing up. I wasn't raised religious, but there was some like my little girl knew that that was what was right, right? And then that all like kind of went out the window. And now I'm turning to this place of like it really does feel like this return to innocence,
Mm,
of like I and wholeness again, like that I'm not reaching for something and trying to make things happen, but like allowing my life to unfold as I am like rooted in myself as woman, as I hold myself with tenderness and care. And part of that journey has led me into, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say this as like it's definitely going to be this way, but I'm really sitting inside of the possibility that I really don't have sex with the man that I marry until our wedding night.
mm,
And I said this to somebody the other day and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like what that's so big. Like but sex is so important. Like how do you reconcile with that?" And when I tell you, I sat back and I was like, "Listen, what I want, what I know is available for me, what I desire more than anything is to be with a man with whom we have such a delicious intimate, beautiful connection with each other that just being in each other's presence, we feel like the erotic aliveness coursing through us. Why would we need, quote unquote, to have sex? To make that more real, to make that more because to your point, the oxytocin release, like all these hormones, these magical hormones that we have in our bodies, right? To respect them, to like respect that they have an impact on us and our behavior and the way in which we bond with another being, like that deserves to be held with reverence. And so this sort of tradition of waiting until you're married, your wedding night is so that you solidify your bond with each other. The reason you cloister, the reason you go honeymoon, as my friend said the other day, it's not my friend Holly, we had this great conversation yesterday. Oh, God bless her. She's like, the honeymoon is not, to go sit on a beach drinking margaritas. Your honeymoon is intended for you to like deepen and solidify your emotional, physical, sexual, spiritual bond with this person.
mm.
And so it's like, I think I remember years ago when I was really impacted by the teachings of Abraham Hicks. And they would say you can't get there from there when like thinks speaking about like the trying to jump from on the emotional scale from like rage to joy, right? You have to like work your way up the emotional scale. And I kind of feel like there's something similar in relationships and sex. Like the thing that I used to want in these one-time experiences with a man that I would feel so much chemistry with, right? Oh, I want to have the mind-blowing, world, like earth-shattering sex and like erotic connection. And oh, maybe I can have it like this one night. And like there was a ceiling to what was possible. Okay. And I didn't fully reconcile with that. You can't get there from there. That will never, ever compare to the kind of sex and the kind of intimacy that I know is possible through taking my time, getting to know and feel somebody and having them get to know and feel me and like oh, just my body buzzes just talking about this. Like I have not yet experienced the gift that that is. And to be honest with you, I'm glad. I know that the kind of sex that I like, I've had some, it's so funny because I used to say that I had great sex, quote unquote. And from this place that I'm like in right now, I'm like, okay, yes, it was great for that time, for that sort of adolescent period of my life, but pales in comparison to what I know is possible.
Mhm. Thank God women like you exist. 'Cause
Mm.
it makes me believe there's a woman out there who gets it. Um,
Oh yeah, the women are waking up. I see it. I am in fields where like I am very grateful and there are so many women who are like I'm speaking basically on behalf of them in what I'm saying. Like at some point we all have to reckon with are the choices that I'm making actually leading to a life that feels good and relationships that feel good. And if they're not, then I really have to examine my choices. And I feel really honored that I've just continued to be, to seek out communities of people who care about the quality of their lives. Because to care about the quality of my life is inherently to care about the quality of life for everyone around me. The more conscious I am about my choices and the more attuned I am to what brings me true joy and what has me centered in a life of service and love, that is going to impact everybody in my life. Yeah. So,
whew,
yeah.
there's so many things here. So it's interesting. So then for men, I'm teaching certain men who are starting out, right? They're back chapters behind where I might consider myself to be, not as a better than or anything, but just like socially awkward, anxious, introverted,
Mm,
who want dates, who want sex, want to know what it's all about, and have not experienced it yet. And then for me to tell some of them, like, oh, actually, just wait until marriage, like
mm,
it's not the right perception or perspective for their time. Like I'm almost feeling like saying, okay, well, go after that, see what it's like. Experience it for yourself. Maybe get burned by the heat of the flame so that you know what actually works and doesn't. And for me in my house, I shall serve the Lord. Oh God, I'm not full on Christian per se, but I do have a relationship with Christ. And so it's interesting, a lot of things showed up as you're speaking. Without vision, the people will perish, and without purpose, the people will pander. This is my friend Jonathan England says this latter phrase. And if someone is not fully embodied living their purpose, then they're going to pander and people please for pleasure, sex, attention, validation, connection that is of a lower quality than what they could actually experience if they were choosing to give themselves fully to why they're meant to be here, or even opening their mind to the possibility that there is a meant to be here and a why around that.
mm,
And yeah, honoring the intrinsic emotionally uh impactful facet of sexuality and then reverencing that. I loved how you said that. So I'm in this space interestingly personally, and I'm curious where you've landed with yourself. Like pleasure is a pathway to embodiment and trust in oneself. And I did a whole depth sexuality course earlier this year where it was like, all right, self-pleasure 3 times a week. I was like, oh, that's a lot. I don't really think I need that much, but I was doing it. And cobra breathing the energy back at the end and all of this so that it didn't just get wasted or strewn amidst the four winds. And as I've leaned more deeply into cultivating this reverence, I just find less of a desire. And I just find like I don't even want to use my energy and attention for self-pleasure.
Mhm.
I want to use it for creating, which leaves me in this in these moments, and they've been coming less and less often lately. Like in moments, there's like it's like a berserker sexual desire energy, and I'm just like, all right, breathe. Because we do
Mm,
the wrong thing so long, the right thing feels wrong. I even had a dream 2 nights ago. It was super nourishing because I had just done some release work on being able to receive. Because in this whole realm, right, what arose for me was if most people are using sex and pleasure to avoid pain, to avoid trauma, and to extract hits like a crackhead would of significance and attention from other people, then how can I trust that I'm not doing that if I'm acting on my attraction for someone, or that they're not doing that if they're acting in attraction with me? And so that got hooked into like a fear that love is not safe from my earlier childhood because mom beat dad, and there's a whole world around that. And my channel was closed energetically. My channel was closed to where it was like, well, I really, part of my heart really desires this love and affection and touch and sex and makeouts and connection, but I can't even allow in the past, I affirm, this is where I was coming from. I couldn't even allow myself to imagine receiving that without potentially doing harm to someone and me.
mm,
Because if I'm trading significance for approval, or I'm putting my significance ahead of my service, and I'm trading my purpose for the approval that I'm getting in that moment of pleasure or in that moment of sex or in that relationship of
mm,
mutual feeding of egos, then fuck, I'm restarting the dynamic that led to this that was so painful. I'm re-engaging the like hero victim thing, and how can any relationship actually not be that? And I was just trapped. It was like a Chinese finger trap. But then I released. And I had this dream where, with my former partner, we made out, and I ate her out, and we were about to have sex, and the receiving of that nutrition on the astral level was like enough for
mm,
me.
mm,
Now, my ego for a moment there was like, "Oh, do you want to be back with her?" And I was like,
mm,
"That's a stupid decision." Hold on, hold on, that's crazy talk, man. I
mhm,
love her. I will always love her and vote her victory. And in her pace, her process, her path, her time, she'll wake up if and when, to whatever extent she's meant to. Um, but yeah, I'm open. I guess I'm landing in this space of like being able to receive the nourishment of sex as a man and the
mhm.
nourishment of erotic energy without having to have sex, and definitely without having to have a partner in this now moment. And what is it? Aim at heaven, you'll get earth thrown in. Aim at earth, you'll get neither. So if we aim at just sex, we're not going to get the fullness of what's available. But if we aim at the heaven of living our purpose and receiving our aligned partner,
Yeah.
then I have to have faith that will be an explosion of all the best of pleasure and connection. And
Mhm.
it escapes me. But what do you? How does that land for you? Go ahead. Yeah.
So, this is an interesting tension for me to look at and be with because like what I really want to say is we have to take the journey. Like whatever the journey is, like put one foot in front of the other. It's like nothing's gonna happen in regards to your having the kinds of relationships with that you want without like taking a step and doing something, right? Saying yes to something or someone. Um, it's really like what level of consciousness can you bring to your choices at the end of the day? Like, I think that can I say that I would go back in time and like never have had casual sex? I don't think I could say that because it like literally led me to this path of coming into this truth for myself, not because somebody else put it on me, not because somebody else told me that's the right way to live. So this is why I really do my best to practice not being prescriptive, but really just sharing my journey because it really is going to look different for everybody. And so like I want to speak to, the men who have not yet had sex and, really want to explore have like their sexuality and know that they also want like committed partnership and marriage. Is it like it's not like it's right or wrong to have quote unquote casual sex. Again, what is the level of intentionality you can bring to it? Can you be upfront with people about what you are seeking, right? And be really hooked into, well, what is it that they're seeking? And can we create something, even if it's a one night experience or a short-term experience? Can we create something intentional that's going to leave us both feeling like honored and like, oh, we've really explored something, impact that's impacted us together. Um, and to like bring this forgiveness that it's just not going to be perfect. And like that's part of the journey. And you don't have to, meticulously like think about every single step that you take. Um, but it's coming as much as one can, coming into consciousness about what is the deepest desire that I hold that you know is like and I and as it is it does it feel aligned with what I perceive is, best for me in the eyes of the divine, in the eyes of God, in the eyes of all that is, of like creation, right? Can you find that place and live from like make choices from the awareness that whatever that thing is possible for you, so that you're not, as much as you can, making choices from pain and from lack and from trying to make up for something you didn't get when you were young, and you're actually looking at your choices as a creative act. And when we do that, it's so much more likely to lead us, mm, just lead us into the most joyful landing place.
Mm, exquisite. Thank you. This is the ultimate gold, like of this conversation is everything else was foreplay for this moment because so I'll map it into my personal journey and then I'll bring it to our people, right? Who are listening. The thing that happened for me was noticing how lacking in intentionality I was and how much pain and ignorance and unawareness I was acting from when I first had sex with this woman in the past relationship. And then as I broadened my perception in the past relationships, starting off with sex, casual sex, and then I started to say, oh shit, I can't do that because look at the fruit that bore. It doesn't work. And then it overpendulated because of the pain of the breakups. And the depth to which emotional intimacy gets created is the depth to which one feels it when it's gone or when it dies or when it's absent. One of my coaches even said that his theory, he's been studying attachment for like 15 years, is that there are neurons in the heart that take the shape of your partner that have to die after a
Mm.
relationship ends so that your heart can be available to love someone else again. And I mean, that made perfect sense to me this year. I was like, I did all this work to heal myself to be available for deeper intimacy. And with each relationship went deeper. And so the pain got bigger after the end. And so I overpendulated into the direction from a different kind of pain of like, I don't want to experience that pain again. And I don't have to. And, you know, so let me get obsessively intentional rather than graciously intentional is what I'm hearing as the distinction from you. Like there's lacking in intention, where they're just having casual sex and chasing ass and living from ego and filling a void and feeding a wound. And then there's like obsessive intentional, which is like straitjacketed. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right within what I know is right for me or could be? Versus now, like, okay, I'm going to live from my core, from my heart, and follow what is most alive in the moment and trust and know if in aligned connection with the divine and intuition that I'm being guided right. And that might not look like picture perfect primrose fucking Catholic Christian dogmatic,
Mhm.
20 dates before we kiss or some shit.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, this it's really nourishing, I think. And I agree with you, it's a journey. You cannot be told what the Matrix is. You can only, you can only be shown. And for some people, they're gonna have to live through it. And it's not as high and mighty and simplistic or oversimplified as that. Like
Yeah.
for some people who haven't had sex at all, like, and there is a genetic spectrum too. If we take if we take modern science like Luann Brizendine and the female brain, and the male brain, great books, as not just the propaganda of Babylon, as my Gnostic Christian friend says all science is. I'm like, maybe. We take it to be really useful. There's a spectrum genetically upon which people fall. More likely to pair bond, more likely to be promiscuous, not as a judgment, but as a desire for more and different partners in sex. So like it could be that you and we fall on the first part of that spectrum, but we pretended or tried to force ourselves onto the second. And so
They
like
make it look really exciting.
it does. I remember watching Captain fucking Kirk in 2009 movie and like, he's sleeping with a lot of people. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
did it. It hurt. And it's like, no, got to be careful where I point that thing.
That lifestyle has a really good marketing team. Like, look at Hollywood. That's what I grew up watching, right? And like thinking that that's sexy, like that, right? It sort of reminds me of when I think about like my daily life and how I've had these like beautiful experiences traveling and doing like really amazing things around the world and in my life, and I've had to really come like into relationship with the pleasure of the ordinary, of like making tea, of making really nourishing food, of making sure that I have flowers in my apartment, of going for walks. Like it feels sort of similar on that like spectrum of the sort of promiscuous, like wild, sexually liberated lifestyle, versus like, yeah, like a pair bonded, like a marriage, like a divine union. And to your point, I don't think that there, again, is like a right way to be on the spectrum, but it's really just being honest with where you fall on it, and being as conscious as you can be because this is your life. And when you're in any way an intimate space with another being, this is their life too.
This is awesome. And this is like the perfect crescendo and climax for what it's worth too.
Right?
Gonna have fun today. Um, so there's not a right way to be in life.
Yeah.
There's always a right choice in the moment,
Mm,
how to deal with what's in front of you.
mhm,
And I mean the only bridge that needs to be placed in that gap is intuition and alignment, so someone can receive. And it may actually even be that someone needs to go the path of pleasure in order to embody fully and trust in themselves in the visceral felt sense of what's right or what's not, because that may be everybody's got their own intuition map. Some of them, it's a shivering up the spine or a feeling in the gut or a voice in the head or whatever. For some people, it's like, oh, my sacral's nourished by this.
mhm.
So hopefully this is valuable and helpful for people. Any further thoughts or even closing salvos here?
Well, I just will never stop envisioning a day where the human beings that roam the earth are living so in alignment with what feels good and right for them and is in direct connection with how they may best be of service, that to me is like heaven on earth.
Mm.
And so I believe in that. I will live my dying day believing in that and supporting people in finding that place for themselves. And honoring the beauty that again like looks different for all of us. But I believe that deserve we deserve that world. And um yeah, I'm follow your bliss, right? Follow what find what is actually blissful for you and follow it.
You don't confuse mere pleasure with bliss, is also what I'm hearing.
Yeah, because bliss is it's not just this like sort of sacral pleasure seeking, right? But bliss that is sourced in the heart, bliss that is sourced in the spirit, bliss that is sourced in our creational potency as human beings, like that kind of bliss.
Yeah, it's not whole body orgasm so much as whole soul aliveness.
Yeah. Yes, yes. There's a difference. Like whole soul aliveness can include the whole body orgasm, right? And orgasmic states, but there's it's so much bigger than that. And like for anyone who doesn't yet know what like has not yet found that for themselves, honestly, one of the things that has made the most difference in my life, even having spent thousands of dollars on programs, is getting on my knees and praying about it. Like putting my ego aside, putting aside this like, wait, but do I believe in God? Or, this feels weird, right? Putting it aside and being like, you know what? I'm gonna be on my knees. I'm gonna share to the all that is to to the empty space around me what I'm struggling with, what I'm grappling with, what I'm afraid of, and ask help me see, help me make a choice that is right for me, right? Like the answers the answers come, the answers that you need will come.
Mhm.
You can trust that.
Yeah, we don't need to try to figure it all out with our little ego pea brain meat sack.
We don't we don't. How lonely it was for me to think that I had to figure it all out myself. Oh
I
my
still
gosh.
fall prey to that illusion, and it is. I agree. From time to time, even while I'm daily like praying and reaching out to the divine. So anyway, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your love and attention in this dance and this conversation and standing in the way that you do for human thriving. I also am committed to a world that works for everyone with no one and nothing left out from love, all of us in our full contribution and power and potency and purpose. And
Yes.
yeah, so y'all, please go ahead. Use the very last.
I was just gonna say, what an exciting thing to be alive and to be committed to that. Oh my gosh, just what a blessing. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Lewis. And I appreciate very deeply your commitment and your service, and the ways that you contribute to countless lives. Yeah, just really grateful to be here in this conversation with you.
Thank you. And you're welcome. And y'all are welcome listening. Please, as they say, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. We love you. Go make love easy.
Mm. Yeah.